And my company, which I just started this year, right before COVID, this is really exciting, right? Is Savoie Hill Consulting. And Savoie Hill Consulting is basically, I am a trained coach now, and I coach business developers, I coach managers, leaders, using over 25 years of experience that I have in hospitality management, business development, and CAM world as well. I'm a licensed community association manager. Worked for Associate Gulf Coast as one of my first CAM jobs, and it was really a launching pad for me to going into actually the business development side. So a couple of housekeeping rules for Zoom. If you all would mute yourselves. So in case there's any background noise or a call comes in or leaf blowers are going off like they were earlier this morning in my house, it doesn't disrupt the class, but feel free to unmute yourself when I ask you to ask any questions or give a comment. So again, please find your mutes in your computers, mute yourself. Sometimes you can use a space bar to mute and unmute. And we'll just get started. We'll get rolling ahead here. So turning clients into advocates. The objective here today is to talk about what constitutes client loyalty. What are the different types of defining moments when you're dealing with servicing your clients? 6 rules for handling an upset client. Raise your hand if you've noticed a little bit of volatility in people lately. People are a little volatile, a little on edge. Yeah, right. So how do you handle an angry client? We're going to talk about that. What happens when the customer is not always right, right? And we'll start with client loyalty. So here's one of those times when I'm going to invite you to raise your hand, unmute yourself, and tell me, what do you think client loyalty, what does it consist of? What makes a happy client? I know you all are not shy, so what makes a happy client? Who wants to start?
I would say, Mitch, communication, just making sure that you are there for them when they need you, every step of the way, that you're communicating and letting them know that you care.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think everybody would definitely agree with that. I have been doing a lot of classes like this for community association managers, doing corporate training for management companies. And one of the #1 things that comes up when I ask them that question as managers dealing with board members and homeowners is speed of communication, like how quickly they respond and how much they sometimes can even over communicate so that the clients always know what's going on and they don't get a little bit freaked out. So that's awesome. Thank you, Pam. Anyone else? What makes a happy client? I know you all know. Charlotte?
I'd say being kind of like on their page, understanding where they're coming from and trying to meet them at their points of need and eliminate the pain points.
Absolutely. And that's a really good point. You said the pain points, like what is it that they're actually trying to solve? Because if you're trying to solve a problem for them that is really not a problem, well, first off, you're not going to get a sale there, right? You're not going to sell them on anything, but also you're going to be talking to them about something that they just don't want to hear about, they don't care about. Or maybe they don't even understand that they have the problem until you ask enough questions to enlist, oh yeah, I guess that is a problem. I should probably handle that, right? So #1 though, a great product, right? You can be the best business developer in the world if your product is not solid, if your company doesn't deliver what is promised, if you fall short, you're never going to have a happy client, right? So first off, that's what we got to start off with. That's pretty self-evident, right? What about a strong team? So how many of you rely on a team? How many of you work with a team to get done what you need done? All of us, pretty much, show of hands. Yeah. We don't work in an island. So a strong team. Good. I see some hands going up. Yep. All right. Awesome. So there's always, even if it's a team of 2 Or even if it's a very large team, communication between the team, understanding what each team member needs, and that the team is also kind of your client. You service each other, you're there for each other. If you can understand that and you can work really well as a team, well, that's going to go a long way. Knowledge. So you can't just kind of BS your way through some of your sales cycles, right? You really have to know a little bit about what you're talking about. Maybe if you're a business developer, let's say for an engineering firm, as I was at one point, like, I'm not an engineer and I didn't know a lot of the technicalities, but I made sure to at least educate myself enough to understand the major things that clients would ask about and be able to answer questions intelligently. But here's the thing, when you don't know the answer to a question, when you don't have the knowledge, it's also okay to say, you know what, that's a great question. I don't actually know, but I'm going to find out and I will email you tomorrow, or I'm going to find out and I'm going to call you tomorrow and give you the answer to that. How many of you, and you can either raise your hand or raise your virtual hand, have heard a salesperson or a business developer that doesn't know what they're talking about, that they're just making it up as they go along, and they're still giving the answer just because they feel like they have to give an answer. They're just, yeah, I see some heads going, right? So the client knows, when you are pulling it out of your hat. So make sure that you know what you're talking about, and if you don't, it's okay to just say, that's a good question, I don't know, but I'm going to find out. And that's part of transparency. That's part of step 4 as well, being transparent. I'm going to invite you to unmute yourselves, raise your hand. I'll take some volunteers here. What is transparency? I love to get to hear people's take on this word. What is transparency to you? Alan. Hi, Alan.
Hi. I was going to say on the last point first that I think what's really good that if somebody asks you a question that your particular service doesn't provide, that it's really helpful to say, well, we don't do that, but I can recommend some really good people. It could be a related service or product, and I think clients appreciate not only you giving answers from within your organization, but actually giving them a source if what they're asking for is not what you offer.
Absolutely.
I think transparent.
And that actually helps grease your wheels, right, with your fellow business developers as well, or your fellow companies, right, and help, right, build that relationship. Absolutely. Right.
I think transparency for me is really being clear on what you or your product can do and what it can't do. What the costs are that are predictable, and what may be a cost of the service or product that may be unpredictable based upon the circumstances. It's creating a reality-based expectation about what your performance is actually going to look like, what the variables are, to prepare them for things that may alter during the course of the work.
Absolutely.
That's transparent.
So that's a great answer. Thank you. Yes. So anybody else, what's your take on transparency? What does it mean to be transparent with your client? What about when things go wrong?
Hi, Mitch. It's Pam.
Hi, Pam.
I think that basically transparency is being totally honest with the client. So if I'm experiencing an issue, or I can't get their work done, or we've had a schedule change or something to that nature, is always being totally open with them and saying, here's what's going on. This is because with us, if weather happens, their project might be postponed. So being upfront, telling them why, not leaving them hanging.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And that's a really great point, and even lead us to the next point of that desire to serve, right? The desire to serve. If you really want to serve your customer, your client, then you're going to be honest, you're going to be open. And that means that even if you have to say, yeah, we messed up, or yeah, that didn't go that well, but here's how we're going to recover. And we're going to talk a little bit about that. Always delivering what is promised. And how do you deliver what you promise? So I want to stop for a minute here, and I hope you all have something to write with, because I want to do a quick exercise, a little quick exercise. So I should have said at the beginning, make sure you have a pen and paper, because we are going to do some jotting down of ideas. So I want you to write down, what do you feel makes you stand apart, above and beyond, either as a business person, salesperson, business developer, or the product that you represent? Because it's very important to get clear in your head. So what is it that sets you apart? And I want you to just write that down really quickly. Write down, what are some of the things that set you apart? And think about what sets you apart as someone who is client facing as well. What sets you apart from maybe a competing business developer, a competing company? What do you think sets you apart? Now I want you to think about, on the points that set you apart, how can you capitalize on that? How can you maximize on that? And this is something you don't have to write down, but I want you to think about, take it away with you and think about, how can you maximize on that, is the one question, the first question. And the second question is, what could you do better? What could you do better? It's really important, as part of transparency and a desire to serve, to be introspective. And, we're in a time where, sometimes there's some people that don't like to be introspective. They don't like feedback. They don't like to look inside. But the strongest leaders and the most successful people, they take inventory. So taking an inventory, what sets me apart? How can I maximize that? And what can I do better? If every week on Friday or whenever you end your week, you sat down and took a look at that. What did I do really well? What set me apart this week? What do I need to work on? What can I do better? If you did that every week, when you close out your week, you would, one, have a really great inventory, some insight, and always be learning, or we hope, trying to learn something new, or polishing or sharpening that saw, right? So next question is, what is the strongest type of advertising? What do you guys think?
Television.
Word of mouth.
Television, word of mouth. Who else? You can type it into the chat as well. Jeff Graff says referrals. Anyone else? What is the strongest type of advertising? So these are all good answers. The number one type of advertising, however, good or bad, word of mouth. Absolutely. If a customer has a bad experience, he will tell, they say on average, 7 people. So, that bad experience equals 8. Unfortunately, it doesn't work the same for good experiences. A customer might tell 1 or 2 people. If you notice in Yelp reviews, and some people, they will go out of their way to write a good review, but they'll definitely write a bad review if they've had a bad experience, right? Have you noticed that? I mean, even me, sometimes it's tough to say, but if I have a really bad experience and I'm fired up, I'm going to tell people about it. But if I have a great experience, I might forget. I might get caught up in my day-to-day and think I should write a review about that, or I should send a really nice letter. but it doesn't happen as often. So word of mouth is really important. And if you burn somebody, they're going to tell 7 other people on average. So that's 8 people that are going to say, oh, that person was really didn't do a good job, or they didn't deliver what was promised. So you have to have the wow factor. We're in such a competitive time. We're in a very competitive field. What's the wow factor? So part of this is what you wrote down. What sets you apart? What do you do really well? What makes you a little bit different than the person, you know, next to you? And how well do you show up in defining moments? What are defining moments? So defining moments are opportunities to wow. So go above and beyond. So I want you to think about a recent time when either you went above and beyond for a client, and you know you did, or somebody went above and beyond and really wowed you. Just take a couple of seconds here. Just think about that. Call that to mind. An opportunity to wow. A defining moment. And now think about, people remember how you made them feel. They may not always remember even the detail that you brought to them, but they'll remember how you made them feel, right? So think about how those opportunities to wow, or that opportunity you thought about, how it made you feel, or how you think it made the other person feel. And in that context, the same as people will remember how you made them feel, if it was a really good interaction, they'll also remember if it was a bad interaction, right? So graceful recovery is one of the top and most important aspects of, it's a defining moment, right? A mistake is a defining moment. Let's be real. We all make mistakes. No company is perfect. No paint job is going to be, you know, perfect. No construction project is always going to go 100% on time, not often, right? So things will happen. The question is, how well do you recover? How well do you recover from that mistake? Do you follow up and make sure that you call back, email back, do whatever it takes to say, hey, did we write that wrong? And in the process, do you keep in touch? Or do you shy away from that conversation because you're like, oh, I know we messed up, so I don't want to call that client? I mean, let's be honest, and let's see if we can be honest. Raise your hand if you've ever shied away from calling a client, like been like cringing because you're like, oh, we had a bad interaction, or, you know, we made a mistake on that, and I don't even want to talk to that person, right? I mean, I've done it, right? That's human. It's very human to shy away from the source of pain, right? And that source of pain is, well, we made a mistake or something bad happened. And people will remember that. They will also remember that you kind of steeled yourself and made that call anyway, and called and said, go ahead, let me have it. And listen to what they said, and then said, yes, it definitely, I understand it was a really bad situation. And, you know, it can either be, I'm not sure what we're going to do about it, but I'm going to make damn sure that we're going to do something about it. And I'm going to call you back tomorrow. I'm going to call you back in 3 days, and I'm going to tell you what the plan is. Or it can be, this is exactly what we're going to do. Or it can be, there's nothing we can do. We made a mistake. There's no way to turn that back now. And I really am sorry. But, you know, here's what we're going to do. We're going to offer you a credit for the next time, or we're going to, just something that shows that, yes, we acknowledge, and I'm reaching out to you, and I'm acknowledging. So my first management job was in a restaurant in Beverly Hills, and it was one of the most popular restaurants at the time in Beverly Hills. So it was very busy all the time, a lot of agents and a lot of very entitled people. Everybody thought they deserved that table, even if there wasn't a table there for them, right? So a lot of interesting interactions. So one time I got called over to this table, and I will admit right off the bat that this was a rookie manager mistake. I went to the table because I noticed that this mother was sitting there with her child, and the child had his toys spread all across the ledge of the booth. The ledge, which was right next to another booth where people were trying to enjoy their lunch. And seeing this, I thought, hey, I better go over and ask her if she can just get the toys on the table and off the ledge so she's not bothering those people. I noticed that people glanced over a couple of times. So I'm like, yeah, I'm a good manager. I'm going to go over and handle this. And when I said, ma'am, can you please, have your son play on the table instead of on the ledge, because, there's people sitting on the other side. So she said, oh my gosh, did they complain? I'm so sorry. Did they complain? And as a rookie manager, I said, I could just tell that they were annoyed. And she was like, oh, she acted very remorseful and said, of course, and handled it. And I thought, well, that was good. I handled that. A few minutes later, the server calls me, Mitch, please, my customer, she is so upset. You need to go talk to her. What is she upset about? This is weird. Okay. I went over and she said, you're a terrible person. So right off the bat, I'm like, uh-oh, what did I do? You're a terrible person and you are a liar. And I was flabbergasted. What, ma'am, what are you talking about? She says, I asked those people and they said, my little angel was not bothering them at all. Now, who's going to admit to some crazy lady that, yeah, you were upset or you made a face or anything? They probably just said, well, no, we're fine, right? But she was so angry and she said, and you're a liar and, they're fine. And I said, well, what I should have said to begin with when I approached her was, ma'am, can you, have your son play on the table? And when she said, are they annoyed or did they complain? I should have said, no, but it's my job to ensure that that doesn't happen. So I'm trying to be proactive here. So in an effort to kind of, yeah, well, I could tell. Instead, what I did was make a customer a lot angrier, right? Was she unreasonable? Absolutely. What, did I still make a rookie mistake? I made a mistake. I should have, owned up to that. So sometimes though, you have to agree to disagree. And I said, well, I'm sorry you feel that way, ma'am. And I did not gracefully handle that situation. So taking ownership. And part of that is active listening. To talk a little bit about active listening, because Scott Gilbert, you had brought this up when I did our public speaking class, that public speaking is a skill that is definitely in need of practice, but so is active listening. We listen to people already assuming in our minds either what they're saying before they've even said it, or what we're gonna say, or I don't know, your to-do list. We're standing there and we're smiling and nodding, but we're not really listening to each other. And that's a big problem right now in general, but especially when you're dealing with clients and angry clients especially. So active listening, the first step of active listening is being present. And being present means get out of your head. Like really being there, really listening to what is being said, listening without all the assumptions, and listening for what is not being said. And that means looking at body language. What is the body language? What is the tone of the person? And then asking enough questions. So raise your hand. How many of you here are salespeople, are in the business of sales in one way or another? And you can raise your hand digitally too. You have your little raise your hand. Okay. So most of us, and really, even if we're, not the direct salesperson, we're in the business of sales, right? So asking enough questions. I have been in rooms like a CAI room where a business developer is talking to a manager, a prospective client, and they're doing a lot of talking. They're doing more talking than the prospective client is doing. And that's one of the first mistakes in sales, is if you're talking more than the client is talking, then you're talking too much. What you should be doing is asking questions. And whether you're just getting to know them and it's asking them about their child, their home life, how's it going right now during COVID time? What are they doing to stay active? Whatever it is, getting them to talk and then really listening and digesting the information rather than you talking. So somebody here had mentioned about the pain point, but how do you find the client's real pain point if you don't ask enough questions? You don't. You end up assuming, and then you sell them something that they don't really want, so you don't get the sale. But if you really ask questions, if you get deep, people will get deep. They will answer. People love to talk about themselves if you ask. So asking questions is a big part of active listening, and then recognizing the clues. And the clues are they disinterested in what I'm talking about? Do I need to change the conversation? How many of you have been, now I know we do a lot of marketing, a lot of trade shows. How many of you have observed, I love to observe business developers in action. How many of you have observed somebody talking to a prospective client or a manager, and you can tell like 5 minutes ago that manager is uncomfortable, like wants to get out of that conversation. His eyes are darting around. Who has seen that? I know you've never done it, but if you've seen it in somebody else, raise your hand. If you've observed somebody else doing that. Yes, some of you, okay, right? I mean, the client looks like they want to run away. That tells you that person really isn't recognizing clues. That person is not reading the body language. If it looks like the person is uncomfortable, if the client or prospective client is not saying much, you've lost that conversation. You need to just ask open-ended questions and get them talking. And that's how you'll dig deep, you'll learn a lot, and you'll eventually find that pain point so that the client will actually say, yeah, I actually do need your service. All right, so back to that crazy lady with the kid and the toys, right? So handling an upset client, right? So sometimes when an upset client is being unreasonable or they're being maybe reasonable, but they're really angry in that moment, and you have to have that conversation. This is what I call the handling the upset client steps. So one is, don't take it personally. Don't take it personally. That's very hard to do if somebody's yelling at you. Well, you're a jerk, and so is your company, and I don't ever want to work with you again. And you can get in your head, right? It's not a comfortable conversation. First step is to don't take it personally. Kind of get out of your head and think, well, this person's upset, but it's not me personally. I mean, unless you did something personally, and then I would just apologize, right? The second step is to relax and detach. Again, when somebody's really upset, very hard to do. So relax and detach can be a process of just kind of focusing on your breath, slowing down your breathing, because when you're being yelled at, it's kind of, it's an attack, and the body will go into a fight or flight mode. The pressure, your blood pressure will come up, your heart rate speeds up, your breathing speeds up, and then you're not really there. So if you can just relax and detach, if you can sit there and tell yourself, okay, this person is mad, I can see, I'm just gonna, it's not personal, and to slow down my breathing, just be here, detach, and practice that active listening. Listen for clues, listen for things in their speech or something that they said that you can grab onto and then give a really sincere acknowledgement. Mrs. Jones, I'm really sorry that your cat was negatively impacted by the pink flowers instead of us putting the white flowers. I can see that you care a lot about your cat and that this was very upsetting to your cat, and that's a bad situation. I totally understand. I didn't say I agreed. I didn't say I disagreed. All I did was acknowledge. I understand that you were impacted in this way, and that's, you know, a bad situation to be in, or you know, I understand how you feel, or yeah, you're right, this is really frustrating. I can understand it's frustrating. A really good, solid acknowledgement, sometimes just that will calm the person down. Sometimes a person just needs to vent, and a really good, yes, I have heard you and I've understood. Sometimes that goes a long way. It always goes a long way, but sometimes it even just handles, because if there's nothing you can do in that moment, sometimes they just want to vent and you say, yeah, I get it. I totally get it. Again, that doesn't mean you have to disagree or agree. You're just saying, yes, I totally acknowledge and I have heard you. So be careful with the us and them. What is the us and them? Us and them, and I've heard some younger managers or customer service reps make this mistake where it's like, yeah, I don't know why our company does that. I agree with you. I think it's stupid, right? Oh, so now it's like us and them, like, I'm with you, the company sucks. That's not going to get you anywhere because your company pays your check, right? So the concept of us and them, well, I agree with you. I don't know why they do that. It's an us and them instead of backing your company up, whether you agree or disagree, but you're representing that company and saying, I understand that you're frustrated, and we will find a way to get through this, or, well, this is why we do it that way, or, well, you know, this is, you really stand behind your product, stand behind the company. Don't try in an attempt to ease the person attacking you. Oh no, I'm with you. I think they're dumb for doing that. All that's doing is making them disrespect your company, and you'll never get work from them again, right? But I've heard people do that. Tell me, raise your hand if you've ever heard somebody do that. Like, yeah, I don't know why the bosses do it that way, or I don't know why the company, maybe in a customer. Have you ever seen that or heard that? Anyone here? Yeah, Amanda, yeah, Pam. It's again, a rookie mistake, because again, what you're saying is that I belong to this company, I represent it, but I don't really. And that doesn't help you groove the relationship in or get more business later on, right? So know us and them. And 6, do what you promise. So even if you couldn't fix the mistake, but you say, I'm gonna, you know, offer you a credit, I'm gonna get back and just make sure that we can do that, and I'm gonna call you back tomorrow. Make sure you call back tomorrow. You do what you promise. You actually do what you promise and follow up. A lot of customer upsets get exasperated because of lack of follow-up. If somebody would just follow up and say, hey, you know what, I'm just checking in. We don't have a solution yet, but I promised that I was going to call you. So I am calling you and letting you know that I'm still working on it. Sometimes that goes a long way, because at least you called. At least there was some communication in there. And that will make the client go, oh, she cares about me, or he cares about me. Even though there's not a solution yet, he's in this with me, or she's in this with me. Say, hey, I'm there with you. I don't have the answer yet. I just wanted to call as I promised I would. And tomorrow I will call you back, and I'm trying to get that answer for you, or that resolution for you. So do what you promise. So now go ahead. Somebody had a question? Oh, sorry, I thought somebody had a question. So any questions so far? Whatever works. Looking at some of your chats. So what happens if the customer is not always right? What happens then, right? So again, I go back to managing a restaurant, and I'm called over to a table, and a man is just being really difficult with the server, and he's asking for something that we just don't do, and in a demanding way. And I could see when I walk over to the table, he's sitting with 3 ladies, and I could tell just in looking that the ladies were a little bit coward, like he's somebody that probably is a little bit of a bully and is used to people doing what he says, right? But unfortunately, we couldn't do what he was asking. So I step over and repeat what the server had already said, sir, we can't do that. So he says, oh, you're gonna do that, and then turns back around and looks at the ladies and ignores me. So I have to tap him and say, sir, no, I'm afraid we can't do that. So then he stands up, and he's towering above me, and he's a pretty big guy. And he says, you're not going to do that. And I'm a little, you know, nervous. My heart's a little racing. Again, I'm still a young manager. And I look up at him and I say, no, I'm afraid not. I'm afraid we can't do that for you. So he gets into my face and, almost spitting in it, says, you're an a-hole. And he's in my face. I'm almost worried he's going to hit me. I mean, that's how angry he looks. And my servers are behind me, and they're all looking at me like, how is she going to respond to this? So I know that my next response has to be something that they're going to respect, but I also know that this customer is unreasonable, and I really can't deliver what he's trying for me to deliver. So when he gets in my face and says, you're an a-hole, I just calmly look at him and say, I'm sorry you feel that way. And he just shuts up, turns around to his ladies and says, get up, we're leaving. Which at that point I was nobody was upset that he was leaving. So I said, I'm sorry you feel that way. And there's the door, right? there are some times when we have to fire a client, right? There are some times when we deal with people that are not reasonable, and they can get, especially in these days, beyond reason, right? Like this, a little bit crazy. There are crazy people out there. And if you're in the situation where one of them is in your face or is in one of your team members' face, at that point, this is a different handling. This is not handling this is you're actually having to diffuse the situation and say, look, I'm sorry you feel that way, and we're going to have to agree to disagree, but we're not going to do what you're asking us. And that may be a client may be asking you to do something at a really ridiculous rate, or they may be asking you to do something illegal. It happens. I've had clients ask to, can you bend the rules? And when you can't, they get very angry. So what do you do in that situation? I was teaching this class to a group of CAMs recently, and I asked them, I said, so you all have emergency plans for hurricanes and storms, correct? And they, yes. And I said, do you have an emergency plan for a crazy person? Like somebody who gets unruly and even maybe physically violent, because it has happened. Do you have an emergency plan for that? If that happens, they said, oh no, never thought about that. I'm like, well, you should, because it happens, right? So it's just having an emergency plan. It's the 6 steps to CYA, cover your assets, I like to say. And one of them is have a security plan. If you're out in the field, if you're somebody who's very client facing, and somebody gets unruly or somebody gets even, violent, have a plan. What would you do? Even a plan could just be, what would I do in that case, right? Because I worked in a restaurant where I used to be the closing manager a lot, and we didn't have a security officer. And so they thought, well, it's Beverly Hills, you don't need one. No, we'd get some vagrants that come off the street sometimes that were either drugged up or just, whatever their mental state was. And there were some situations where the manager, we felt we were about to get, attacked by this, vagrant or something. And eventually, after begging the GM to have an emergency plan for it, he wouldn't get us a security guard, but at least he got us these little panic buttons. So we had a panic button. If something happened, you press a panic button and hopefully a Beverly Hills cop would come. But at least we had some sort of a plan. It wasn't definitely the plan that I liked, but after going through it enough, at least I would have in my head, I was like, okay, that happens. These guys will back me up and this is what we'll do. And sometimes you just have to be very firm. So one situation when one walked in and got in my face and I said, you need to leave. And it was just very firm and very, you need to leave. And it kind of disarmed him and he just turned around and left. So just being very firm. And that means be sure about your product. Be sure about what you serve and what you deliver. And if somebody's asking you to do something that's unreasonable, then say, you know what? We're not gonna be able to help you with that. Don't antagonize, especially if somebody's getting really irate and really, bad words are flying and they're just being really, really aggressive. Don't antagonize, because that's only gonna make matters worse. Remain calm. Again, that's hard to do when somebody's yelling or somebody's, going off the handle, but you just have to slow your breathing, breathe a little slower, and remain calm, and then be direct. Just like I told that vagrant, you need to leave. Very direct, very much, I'm here, I'm in control. Sometimes just taking the position that you're in control rather than cowering back goes a long way. That person might just go, oh, okay, I can't mess with this person, or this person is going to let me just walk all over him or her. And then protect yourself, your team, and other clients. So especially if you're in a situation where maybe somebody in your team or somebody that you work with or a fellow business developer is in a dangerous situation because of somebody just becoming aggressive or unruly, always protect yourself and your team first, because at the end of the day, you really don't need a client like that, right? And at the end of the day, clients that act like that, And I'll give you an example, like in a board situation, like I knew of one board where the board president, I mean, was just unreasonable. He was crazy. He antagonized all the homeowners. He would stand in the parking lot with a camera. He had nothing to do all day, obviously, and take pictures of any little thing so he can, you know, bring problems with the owners. And so he was generally a problem, but the thing was that everybody knew it. So when we had to say, you know, no, you're being unreasonable and that's not what, we can't do that for you. We could lean on the group emotional bank account because everybody else was like, don't worry, we know he's a jerk. I mean, you guys are doing the right thing. So usually a person like that, everybody knows that they're not the best person to deal with. And the last step that people miss this step, immediately make a report. Immediately, whether it's just writing an email to somebody in your management or your HR saying, hey, just want to let you know this happened, or to your boss saying, hey, just want to let you know this interaction happened, exactly how it happened, when it happened, no emotions, just this is exactly what happened, so you have it in writing. And if later on that comes back to bite you in your booty, you can say, wait, let me show you, I wrote down exactly what happened and I send it to this person, or even just email it to yourself. In a court of law, emails are admissible, so you can just email something to yourself that says, this is exactly what happened, and this is how it went down. So it's just something in writing, and again, it's just, I think I've lived through so many situations, and sometimes it's an experience thing. Somebody asked me when I was teaching this class the other day, they said, how did you know to deal with that person in that way? And I said, experience. There's some things you can't teach. It's just experience dealing with drunk people or unruly people, or eventually you figure out a plan and you learn how to react in those situations. So if you have some newer people that you work with, they might not be as experienced, you know, it's good to go through these steps with them and say, hey, listen, don't feel bad if sometimes you're going to have that one unruly customer, or, you know, this is what you can do in that situation. And I always say this because we forget about it, just breathe. Sometimes you just have to stop and take a deep breath and then go, okay, what's my next step here, right? So let me ask you all. Oh, got some.
Mitch, I have a question.
Yes, please.
Or
And
comment, really.
Stop share just for a minute so we can kind of see each other here. I want to open it up to questions and comments.
I had a former partner, and he used to come in and we'd have every once in a while, I can't deal with this client, they're so difficult and so forth. And I'd say, listen, the true test of your customer service skills does not come with the easy customers. It comes with the challenging ones.
Right.
So this is really an opportunity to test your real customer relation skills. If you can get this one on your side, then you're really performing at a very high level. And he used to start breathing and he'd turn around and then go deal with the client. And because I knew that, you know, if he didn't, I would have to deal with him. So I
right.
tried to bolster his spirit and say, go ahead, you know, you can do this. And
take a deep breath, right?
It would work. It would work.
And for the most part, you know, I've dealt, because I managed and trained managers. You know, I later on worked in a director position at a 5-star hotel in Beverly Hills. And the 5-star standards, many people don't know this, they're very high. They're very picky. You'll get secret shoppers that come in to see if you handled how your verbiage and how did you say, it's my pleasure rather than my pleasure, because you have to speak in complete sentences. I mean, so it was very exacting, and I had to train these managers on how to deal with even the most difficult, demanding clients. And some of them, when they were like, I can't handle them, Mitch, you go handle them. Because I could do that. After a while, you learned to manage to listen and acknowledge and deal even with that most difficult client. So again, like the last points were just for somebody like that little tiny percent that are crazy. I'm talking about crazy, dangerous, violent, like the guy who got in my face. But for the most part, some of those difficult clients, they're just people who either are very misinformed, or they're used to getting their way and they're not used to somebody being direct, or they just have, you know, personalities or behavioral styles that are different from what most people are used to dealing with. So that's where those steps of listening, acknowledging, saying, I totally understand. I understand that that could be very frustrating. And they go, oh, well, yeah, okay, good, good. No, now what are we going to do about it? Well, this is exactly what we're going to do about it. And you have a plan, and then you follow up with that plan. And you say, I'm going to do this, and then you do what you say, right? So most of those difficult clients, you can really handle them with finesse. And you have to have a lot of finesse, especially right now. So some questions. Any of you had difficult clients that you've had to deal with, but that you've turned around to your benefit?
I have a kind of a comment on that thought. Usually the ones that have that conflict and you do handle it so well become your best advocates, if
That's
you know,
right.
to use your word here.
That's
They
right.
get on your side because they see how you handled something that didn't go as planned.
Absolutely. That, Charlotte, is the key. And you've just hit upon the key, that if you can handle even the most difficult of clients, then they become your advocates. We had a couple that used to come in, and every server would be rolling their eyes and going, I don't want to deal with these people. Somebody else deal with these people. None of the managers would come up to them. They'd complain every single time about something. They were just very picky. And none of the managers would come up to them. So I was always the one called to go and handle them and deal with them. And I always did. When I left that restaurant for a different opportunity and moved to that other venue, they followed me. I called them and I said, I'm no longer working there, I'm over here. And they followed me, they came. So they became my biggest advocates. So some of those difficult situations, if you recover well, if you're a rock star in communication and recovery, those clients will follow you. They will become your biggest advocates. So Charlotte, you got that. That's exactly the whole point of pretty much this whole thing, right? Debbie Schaefer says this was great. Thank you so much for the information. You're a rock star. Oh, thank you, Debbie. Thank you. So yes, again, I hope that we've had some tools. We've talked about some things I'm sure a lot of you use and implement in your daily dealings with clients. But before we go, I want to talk about really quickly, and we have 10 minutes here. Things have changed, right? The way we do business has changed a little bit. And hey, maybe it'll go back and be fine in 2 months, and maybe it won't. I keep telling people, you know, this virtual world, it's not going away that quickly. There's still management companies that are telling their managers not to leave their homes and work virtually. So how do you engage when you have to work virtually? How do you get, you know, a lot of people tell me, Mitch, I can't even get the clients to see me because the managers, you know, the doors are shut, right? Have some of you experienced that? The doors are shut. I can't even get in. I can't even reach out to them. So one of my coaching clients, who's a regional director for business development, and she covers 4 states, and is having this issue. And what we've set up a whole program for her and her different markets on virtual interaction. And you really have to think outside the box right now with the virtual interaction, because people are a little bit zoomed out, right? They've got all the Zoom meetings. I always say, you know, when those 5 o'clock happy hours used to be really cool, but when somebody's looking at a screen all day, they don't want the 5 o'clocks, not even the 5 o'clock social, beyond, you know, one more Zoom meeting, right? So how do you connect? There's definitely team building and fun things that you can still do. You have to think outside the box, but even saying, hey, can we jump on a quick Zoom, you know, to talk, and you can at least see each other. Sometimes it's a phone call. Nowadays, people actually are flipping to, I'd rather take a phone call than a Zoom meeting, because they're screen overloaded, right? So a phone call. Here's another thing that's come now, funny enough, is popular again, is a little handwritten card, something in their mail from you. We went away from mail because, hey, it's easier to show up and bring the cookies to the office. But what happens when you can't bring the cookies to the office, a little gift card. Yeah, and it can be a $10 Starbucks gift card with a cute little note that they get in their mailbox. And it's not a virtual thing. But if you are going to do a virtual thing, if you're going to set up a virtual happy hour or a virtual meet and greet, make it one very short, an hour max. You can't do those 2-hour virtual happy hours. Nobody wants that. 45 minutes to an hour. Make it very interactive. So icebreaker questions are great. I do a lot of these virtual events where we'll do a game like 2 Truths and a Lie, or something that gets people talking and kind of funny. Maybe get them to get up out of their seats and stretch out and do a little movement and go, okay, now sit back down and let's talk about your 2 truths and a lie. So it's thinking outside of the box. It's saying, hey, we're going to do a virtual class, but in the class, we're going to have a big break in the middle and we're going to do an icebreaker and everybody's going to talk and give, if whatever, there's so many icebreaker questions you can Google. You can Google team building games. A lot of the management companies, I've been doing a lot of virtual meetings and virtual classes with management companies because they're not 100% yet. Some of them will do live in person, a lot are not right now. So doing virtual classes that, will actually hit the pain point. So for example, right now, a lot of the clients that I'm working with that I'm coaching are saying, well, Mitch, they don't want to hear about my Paint 101 class right now, even though they need it for credits, but they don't want to hear about that. So we're doing a lot of virtual classes on, well, how to handle, different personalities, how to handle conflict management, and they're eating that stuff up. So know what the managers are going through right now. And when you call them, again, doing more of the questioning than the talking, say, hey, tell me how it's been going for you. Hey, it must be real difficult right now. What was your, and ask them, what was like the craziest thing that happened to you this week? Or what was the worst interaction that you've had this month? Managers just start talking. They're like, oh my God, yes, somebody's listening, right? So, ask questions. They want to open up to somebody. These are some of the things that you can do right now to really engage in a time when people are very stressed out, very videoed out, but you still need to use those tools. So you have to be creative. You have to stay on top of, and ahead of the game. The people who say, I don't know how to do it and I don't want to learn and I don't like technology and I've never done it and so I'm not going to, and they're like digging their heels in the sand, those people will not succeed. It's just unfortunate. You will not succeed. We all are learning right now. We're all jumping on the learning curve with a lot of these things. That's what's good, that if you're struggling with it, 50% of the business developers are as well. So we're all doing it together. But you've got to stay on top of what is going on and stay on top of the what are the trends? I stay very much on top of that. I do a whole newsletter that I send out when I hear about, because I'm in the speaker world. Where are the trends? What are people, okay, Zoom was really big, but now, Zoom only during certain times. Stay on top of whatever communication network you can to go, oh, that's not working so much right now. That's working more. And just inform yourself, stay informed and stay fluid. All I can say in the moments like right now is you have to stay fluid. I don't know how to do that and I'm not going to do it doesn't work anymore. You just have to, the person who adapts best will survive best. So that's my, yes, Debbie. We can't hear you, Debbie.
Oh, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Can you hear me now? Okay.
Yes.
Just to share a little bit, you kind of get scared going to property managers or out there because you don't want people saying, I don't want you in or anything like that. But, when you lose a job previous from a company you've been with for 4 years, and then you go and get another job, and you've got to get out there and meet people and talk to people. You really have to be on your game to open up that channel. And I just found that you just got to get out there. Don't be scared. Don't be fearful. but see who's open and who's not. Get a one-on-one with people. Everybody likes lunch. You could get distance. You can do a lot of things to kind of get out there and meet people and stuff and help each other. So it's different times, but very exciting times. And I think you just can't be scared, and just let them know that you're there.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Another great thing to do just to stay in with your clients is, nobody likes to get bombarded with emails, and managers, especially that have 100 emails in their boxes every day, they can't get to the top of their emails. They don't like to be bombarded with emails. So if you're going to email them, don't just email them with stuff about your company. Email them with something that they can use. Email them with something they need. Give them something, whether it's, hey, I just learned that, this new piece of, data or whatever, or, hey, here's some statistics that might help you in, managing your clients or your boards, or, hey, here's a little bit about, how to handle an angry client, just wanted to share this with you. Something that they'll open up and they'll go like, oh, that was helpful. Figure out how can you help them? How can you send an email so you're still staying top of mind? And even sales calls, you can leave a message and say, hey, I'm just calling to say hello and to check in on how you're doing. I know these times are kind of crazy, so I'm going to follow up with an email. No need to call me back, but I'm going to follow up with an email just to check on you. So that goes a long way. You didn't even have to talk to the person. I make my sales calls, and a lot of times I'm not even talking to anybody. I'm just saying, hey, I'm just leaving you a message. I know things are rough right now. Or I know you've been, that property that is really, finicky, it must be difficult. And I just want to let you know I'm here, and I'm going to follow up with an email. And then you stay front of mind, but you stay front of mind without being that pushy salesman, without being that person that's like, oh my God, here she comes again, or he emails me 20 times a day. Nobody wants that, right? So figuring out how to not be the pushy salesman, but just offering something that they actually need. Give them something they need. If it's not cookies right now, find out what's the cookie. Find out what's the virtual cookie. What is the thing they need that you can offer that will stick in their heads? Any other questions? I'm gonna share my screen one more time just so that you all can pull out your phones and take a snap of this. This is my information. And if you need a little bit of, help, and it's okay, everybody does right now. I do a lot of one-on-one coaching on how to set your digital presence up. I do a lot of one-on-one coaching on, just the basics of business development in a virtual world, how to run a good webinar, whatever it is. Feel free to reach out to me. Email me. I can, I'm happy to do even an introductory coaching session, which can go a long way, just so you get a little bit of tools and help that you need. And if you have questions after this, you go, oh, wait, I have another question, email me. Just feel free to reach out to me. I'm definitely here to help. So I'm just going to check these chat boxes. Thanks, Mitch. I'm looking forward to seeing you next week. Yes, Pam. Great to see you all. Awesome. Yeah, well, I'm honored to have been here. I'm honored, Scott. Thank you for allowing me to share, and hopefully you all have come away with something that helps, or at least something that will be something you can use coming out of this. And again, if you have any questions, let me know. Chat box, excellent session today. Thank you, Mitch. Yay, great information. Yay, awesome. Scott, do you have anything?
Yeah, I would just first like to thank Mitch for your time, your knowledge, the presentation today. As always, it's wonderful to see you. I'd like to thank Michelle with Tannenbaum Grow and the entire business partner committee for making this happen. It's been a wonderful event. I remember the first time I met Mitch. He showed up at a chapter breakfast. We were still at Lakewood Ranch, and I didn't know who Mitch was because I was, I guess, relatively new to the whole CAI stuff. And it was like Mitch just gathered a group of people wanting to see her again because she had returned. And I started eavesdropping a little bit on her conversations and the way she networked with people. And the first thing I thought was, I can learn a lot from this person. And I can honestly say I have, ever since I've known Mitch. You've done public speaking stuff for us, other things with the young professionals. We miss having you in the chapter, but it was great to see you today. So thank you again.
Thank you so much, Scott. Well, you have me virtually now, right? That's the beauty of
Exactly.
virtual world. Anytime you need, I'm a disc practitioner now also, so that's been a really good one. Like, that's a really cool class if y'all are ever interested in learning more about disc for sales, for handling different personalities, for managing people. That's been one of my favorite things to teach right now, aside from public speaking, but public speaking now in a virtual world. So thank you, Scott. I'm really honored. I love this group. And again, I knew I was dealing with consummate professionals here today. So I hope you all got something of value out of it. And thank you for having me. Thank you, Scott.
Thank you. And again, if anybody needs Mitch's information or anything, we'll have this available on YouTube. If you need to get in touch with Mitch and did not get the information that you posted, reach out to me. I can make sure any of you can connect with Mitch. But for now, I'll go ahead and close the program, and everyone enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you so much.
And just breathe, people. Just breathe.
Just breathe. Thanks, everyone.
Everyone have a great day. Bye. See you Wednesday.